Hi guys, this is your review for Unit 7. Before I start doing the study guide, I'm just going to write out kind of like all the important stuff that you need to know for this unit. So the first thing that we did was our right triangle trig. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent is opposite over adjacent. And then we had the reciprocal trig function. So reciprocal of sine is cosecant. So you just flip that over. Reciprocal of cosine is secant. And reciprocal of tangent is cotangent. So you just find these three and then flip them over. All right, and then we had the Pythagorean theorem. All right, so that was the first thing we did. Then we got into all of these patterns. Angle, angle, side, and angle, side, angle. You're just gonna do law of sines, which you need a side across from an angle, and then you just set up a ratio. And you wouldn't do all three at once, you would just do two at a time, but it's just true, so I'm writing out the whole thing. If you have side, side, angle, that's the one where you need to do that analysis. Sometimes you do the law of sines and sometimes you get no solution. That's the theta is obtuse, theta is acute, all of that. And if you have side, angle, side, and side, 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 that's going to be law of cosines. So figuring out the pattern tells you how to approach the problem. Your law of cosines, a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of a. I realize that that's a lot, but some of it's repetitive. These two match these two right here, and whatever side you start with is the angle that you're doing. This usually goes well every year. People just write it on their paper when they get the test. I'll tell you the most common mistake I see is instead of cosine, people will put sine, which is funny to me because it's the law of cosine. The other two versions of this, and I don't even know that I would write all of them on your test when you get it, you're just jumbling the letters around. Again, these two match these two right here, and then this side matches this angle. And then the third kind of version of it would be this. So it just depends on what angle you're given or what angle you have, which one you would use. And then the last thing is the areas of the triangles. And same thing with this one, you can shuffle the letters around because it just depends on what you have. But all of those mean the exact same thing. So again, when you get your test, I would probably just like write one of them down. And then we have that Heron's formula where you find that S value, you add all the sides together and then divide it in half. And then your area is a gigantic square root, and then under there you have that S value, and then S minus A, S minus B, S minus C. So that's kind of like all the important stuff to know. Now, realistically, you're not going to write all of that down on your test when you get it. These, I hope you would know Sohcahtoa and Pythagorean Theorem at this point. The ones I would jot down when I got my test would maybe be these three because they're the little bit like longer ones. I think the rest you'll probably be okay with. All right, so here we go. First thing we're going to need to do is find the missing side. So I'm going to call that A. You can call it whatever you want. A squared plus 4 squared equals 6 squared. So this will be 16. This will be 36. Subtract that over. That's going to give you 20. And then square root, you're going to have to split square root of 20. Be 4 times 5. And so it is 2 square root of 5. So sine of theta, and here's your point of view. This is your theta. So that means 4 is the opposite, 2 square root of 5 is the adjacent, 6 is the hypotenuse. So sine would be 4 over 6, which will reduce to 2/3. And yeah, you have to reduce these and you have to deal with all the square roots. All right, cosine would be adjacent over hypotenuse. 2/6 will reduce to 1/3. And then tangent is opposite over adjacent. So 4 over 2 square root of 5. So that's the hardest one to deal with. First of all, 4 divided by 2 would just be 2. And then we're going to rationalize it. So 2 square root of 5 over 5. All right, number 2, find all of the missing stuff. So let's list out what we're missing. We're missing angle B. We're missing side A and side B. So angle B is easy to find. All the angles should add up to 180. So if you do 180 minus the other two, or if you even do 90 minus 29, since it's a right triangle, that'll give you the one that's left. So 61 degrees. All right, so to get A, here's our point of view. A is the opposite. 15 is the hypotenuse. So opposite and hypotenuse is sine. And you do have to write this down on your paper because that's like your work. This is showing me what you're putting in the calculator. I can't give you credit for the answer over here unless you write this. So I'm going to multiply the 15 over, it's 15 sine 29. Also make sure you do 3 decimal points. I'm going to start taking off if you don't do 3 decimal points. That's how they do on the AP exam. All right, and then for B, B is the adjacent. So adjacent and hypotenuse means cosine. So cosine of 29 equals B over 15. Same thing, I'm going to multiply the 15 over, and I got 13.119. All right, so number 3, everything we're missing angle A and angle B and side A. I'm actually going to find this side first because I can do Pythagorean theorem for that. So it'll be A squared plus 8 squared equals 16 squared. So subtract that over, I'm getting 192, and then square root, and we're going to need to split that. Let me see what goes into 192. So hold on. 64 times 3, so that'll be 8 square root of 30. All right, and then for angle A, this would be our point of view. 8 is the adjacent, 16 is the hypotenuse. So that means cosine. So cosine of A equals 8 over 16. So when you type this one in, you have to do second cosine. You're doing cosine inverse. So second cosine, anytime you're looking for the angle, oops, geez, you have to hit second and then sine cosine. So that gives us 60 degrees for A. And if that's 60, then B has to be 30. But if it came out to something that was a strange decimal and you couldn't just tell from looking at it, you would store it. So store alpha A, enter, and then do 90 minus that. So if it came out to a strange decimal, store it and then do 90 minus. All right, these are our areas. This one, we have all 3 sides, so we're going to do that Heron's formula. So S equals, I'm going to add them all together. So add them all together, divide it by 2. So S is 13.65. And so our area is gigantic square root. It's going to be 13.65. Then what I'll usually do is draw 3 more blanks. It's going to be 13.65 minus each of those other sides. So we're going to do 13.65 minus 7. So 6.65. And then subtract 9.3, you get 4.35. And subtract 11, I got 2.65. And so now I'm going to type in that whole thing. And I got 32.347. Now I did put units with this to make sure that you're paying attention. An area will be feet squared, so square feet for that. All right, this one, we're going to use the other formula since we have one of the angles. The thing is, you would need, or no, we have everything we need. I'm sorry, I was thinking we would need to solve for something that we're missing, but we're going to use this version of the formula, 1/2 BC sine of A. If you were missing something, you would have to do law of sines to figure out what you're missing, but I gave you everything for this one. So 1/2 times 13 times 28 sine of 53 degrees. So we're just going to type that in. So I got 145.351. And again, it would be square feet. All right, so here's all of our word problems. So we're going to draw a picture, solve for the missing information, do 3 decimal points, make sure you put units, show all of your work. So you have to write down what you're putting in the calculator. So in a new building, we're putting in a ramp from the doorway down to ground level. So it's going to be a right triangle. And this is the ramp. Angle of 5.5 degrees with the ground. The reason it's such a small angle is, you wouldn't want the ramp to be like super steep. The base of the doorway is 3 feet above the ground. So here's our 3 feet. Determine the length of the ramp. So this is the ramp. So we're looking for the hypotenuse. So this would be sine. Sine of 5.5 degrees equals 3 over x. And we're going to type 3 divided by sine of 5.5. So the ramp should be 31.300. If you get zeros, just put them. And was this feet or meters? What was this? Feet. So draw a picture, set it up, and then give your answer. All right, for this one, from a 125-foot observation tower near the coastline, we see a boat. So the tower is 125 feet tall, and the boat is, out here. So we're up here looking down at the boat. Angle of depression to the boat is 16 degrees, and the angle of depression to the coast is 41 degrees. Now it says angle of depression, and you can dot in the sky and put that if you want, but it's going to be the same as the angles down here because they're alternate interior. So here's the boat out in the water. Here's the coast. So like here's where the water meets the land. So we have one siding that goes to the boat and the other one that goes to the coast. This is like the problem we did in the notes that was about that statue that was on top of a building, and we had one siding that was to the bottom of her feet and the other that was all the way to the top. It's just like that. All right, so the angle of depression to the boat is 16. So 16 is going to go here. And then to the coast is 41. So 41 is going to go here. So how far is the boat offshore? So what we want is this distance, but you can't jump straight to that. We're going to have to do 2 separate problems. So first, let's deal with the 16. So 16 is all the way out here at the edge. So what we're going to end up finding is this distance. I'm just going to call that A. And it's going to be tangent. We have opposite and adjacent. So tangent of 16 degrees equals 125 over A. I'm going to type that in. Got 435.926, and I'm going to store it as A. Store alpha A, enter. All right, now we're going to deal with the 41 degrees. That's just this amount. I'm going to call that B, and it's going to be set up the exact same way. So tangent of 41 equals 125 over B. I'm going to type that in. At 143.796, store that as B. So the whole thing is A, to here is B. If we want this distance, we're just going to subtract them. So A minus B. So I'm going to do alpha A minus alpha B. It will copy paste them for me. And I got 292.130 feet. So it's a 2-part problem. So you have to set up both of these and then subtract them to get the answer. All right, this one is not going to be a right triangle. It says state the angle and side pattern. So we're going to have to do law of sines or law of cosines for this one. And again, show all your work. So you are standing 40 meters from the base of a tree that is leaning 8 degrees from vertical towards you. So here's our triangle. You're standing here, and this is the tree. Trees, they grow upwards, but sometimes they lean. So this one is leaning 8 degrees away from vertical. So if here's vertical, it's leaning 8 degrees away from that. So to get this angle, we have to do 90 minus 8. So this angle is going to be 82. All right, the angle of elevation from your feet to the top of the tree is 20. So 20 goes there. Find the height of the tree. So this distance is what we're looking for. So this is x. All right, so to set up the law of sines, we need a side across from an angle. Wait, I need more information than this. Hold on. Oh, we're standing 40 meters from the base of the tree. So 40 goes down there. I was like, hold on, I need something else. Because we need a side across from an angle. Our angle side pattern here would be angle, side, angle. The side we have is in between the other two. Sorry, I need to make sure I write that because it said, I even circled that. Write out the angle and side pattern. Angle, side, angle. So I need law of sines. I need a side across from an angle. So first I need to get that angle. I'm going to do 180 minus the other two. And I got 78. So when we go to set this up, it's going to be 40 over sine of 78. Drew that a little bit big. Equals x over sine of 20. And then we're going to cross multiply and divide to get our answers. So it'll be 40 sine of 20 divided by sine of 78. So I got 13.986, and this one was meters. So that's how tall the tree is. All right, and then here come all of these patterns. I think this is all that we have, yeah, for the rest of these. All right, so for each of these, you are just going to draw a triangle, start at the bottom left, then go to the bottom right. A is 8, B is 5. The one that you don't know anything about should go at the top. So this would be side, side, angle. That means we have to do the analysis. Whenever you see that one, that should trigger in your brain, okay, I need to do this analysis, because I might do the problem and it might be no solution. See what happens. So theta is acute. It's less than 90. Opposite is bigger than adjacent. Our opposite is 8. Adjacent is 5. If the opposite side is big enough, you're good. Just do the problem. So you have to write that. That's your analysis, but that means just do the problem. So let's see what we're missing. B, C, and little c. So you need a side across from an angle. It's 8 over sine of 36 equals 5 over sine of B. And I'm going to go ahead and write that again, just because I know I'm going to need it again. And I kind of recommend that. Like, just go ahead and write it twice, because you're going to need it. All right, now for this one, we need the angle. So you have to hit second one, and then cross multiply and divide. That was a bad arrow there. All right, so 5 sine of 36 divided by 8. Close the parenthesis it started in the first place, and that is our angle B. So I'm going to store that as B. To get C, I'm going to do 180 minus the other. So 180 minus 36 minus B. Store that as C. And then we have to do one more ratio to get little c. So it'll be little c over sine of big C. You can write 122.446 if you want, but just make sure you use the stored value. We aren't going to hit second sine because we're not looking for an angle. We're looking for a side. We're just going to cross multiply and divide. So 8 sine of C divided by sine of 36. All right, next one, just draw a triangle. Start at the bottom left, then go to the bottom right. That's going to be C this time, and side A is 21. So B goes up here. So our pattern is angle, angle, side. So angle, angle, side. So that just means law of sines, just do the problem. All right, so we're missing B. We're missing, let's see, we want to find the smallest to biggest. C is going to be the smallest because it's across from 16 degrees, and then little b. So for angle B, we're going to do 180 minus the other two. So 64 degrees. And then you need a side across from an angle. So we have 21 over sine of 100. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and write it twice. So to get C, that would be C over sine of 16. And then we're just going to cross multiply and divide. So 21 sine of 16 divided by sine of 100. And then same thing for this one, except it will be B over sine of 64. So you can actually just go back and change the 16 to a 64, or you can type the whole thing again, but that's the only thing that changed. So I usually just go back and change whatever I need to. All right, so for this one, draw a triangle. Now for this one, we're only given all the sides. So actually this one's going to be side, side, side. So we're going to do law of cosines for this one. So you have to find them smallest to biggest. This is where it really matters. All right, so we're going to have to start with A, and then C would be next, and then B. So you have to do them in that order. So we're going to start with A. So 6 squared equals 12 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 12 times 8. Again, these two are going to match these two. And then cosine of A. So this would be 36 equals 144 would be this one plus 64. So adding these together, I got 208 minus 2 times 12 times 8. I got 192 cosine of A. So again, the two common mistakes I see here is people write sine instead of cosine. Just remember, it's the law of cosines. And the other common mistake is people will subtract these. You can't do that because they're not like terms. You have to subtract this 208 to the other side. So 36 minus 208. You will always get a negative result equals a negative result, and then the negatives will cancel. That is always the way that that will turn out. So those negatives cancel out. Divide over the 192. And then we have to hit second cosine since we're finding the angle. All right, so angle A is 26.384 degrees. Store that as A. And now we can do law of sines because now we have a side across from an angle. So it's going to be 6 over sine of A. And you want to do law of sines instead of law of cosines because it's a lot less work. We always want to do less work. All right, equals 8 over sine of C. So again, since we're looking for the angle, we're going to hit second sine and then cross multiply and divide. So 8 sine of A divided by 6. Store that as C. And then to get the last one, you're just going to do 180 minus the other two. And a way you can kind of check your work is these should be, you should find the smallest to biggest. So they should be in order. All right, A is going to go down here, 110. Across from that is 125. B goes down here, across from that is 100. C is the one we don't know anything about. So this is side-side angle. And so that's the one we need to do the analysis for. So theta is obtuse. I know I didn't draw that way, but it doesn't need to be to scale. This is bigger than 90. Opposite is bigger than adjacent. So that means that you're good. Just do the problem. All right, so we are missing big B, big C, and little c. So I need a side across from an angle. And I'm going to just go ahead and write that twice. And over here, I'm going to have 100 over sine of B. So hit second sine, since you're looking for the angle, and then cross multiply and divide. Store that as B. To get C, you're just going to subtract the other two from 180. Store that as C, and then we're going to set up the law of sines one more time. It'll be C over sine of C. You don't need to hit second sine because you're not looking for the angle, just cross multiply and divide. All right, 13. So we're going to put 110 down here. 125 goes across from that. B goes down here. This is 200. C is the one we don't know anything about. So again, it's side-side angle. That means we have to do the analysis. Theta is obtuse. Opposite is less than adjacent. So if the opposite side's not big enough, a triangle is not going to get formed. And we're just going to say no solution. All right, here we're going to put C down here. We don't have little c. A will go down here. This is 10. B goes at the top. This is 7. So we have side, angle, side. So that means law of cosines. So we have to find everything smallest to biggest. The first thing that we're going to find is little c. And then angles, we would find b first and then a. So this will be c squared equals 10 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 10 times 7. And these two are going to match these two. Cosine of 108. And then you're going to square root both sides of this. So we're going to do a square root of all of that mess. So 10 squared is 100 plus 7 squared is 49 minus 2 times 10 times 7 cosine 108. We got 13.865. Store that as C. And now we have a side across from an angle. So now we can do law of sines. You want to do law of sines instead of law of cosines because it's a lot easier. It's a lot less work. So we have C over sine of 108. And you could write 13.865 there if you want, but just make sure you use the stored value. All right, equals 7 over sine of B. We're trying to find the angle, so hit second sine and then cross multiply and divide. So 7 sine of 108 divided by alpha C. And I got 71.561 degrees. Store that as B. To get the last angle, just do 180 minus the other two. So 180 minus 108 minus alpha B. That is really, really tiny. I feel like I must have messed something up somewhere. Hold on, let me pause this and figure out what I did. Okay, I don't know what happened, but I somehow typed this one in wrong. But you know what? I'm actually kind of happy that happened because do you see how I caught that? Like when I came down to the very last answer and I got like 0.4 for the angle, like I knew something wasn't right. All right, I retyped this one. I don't know, I just must have typed it wrong the last time. Here, I'll do it again. Second sine, because I'm trying to get the angle, and then cross multiply. So 7 sine of 108 divided by alpha C. And I don't know how I got 71 the first time, I apologize. But actually, again, I'm kind of happy that happened because then I got to show you how to fix it if you feel like you made a mistake. So I retyped it. I don't know what I did wrong the first time, but 28.693, store that as B. And then to get the last angle, do 180 minus the other two. And there, that makes a little bit more sense. Actually, a lot more sense. All right, 15, draw yourself a triangle. A is going to go down here, 58 degrees. Across from that is 11.4. B goes down here. Across from that is 12.8. C, we don't know anything about. So side angle. And so again, that's the one that you need to do the analysis for. So theta is acute. Opposite is smaller than adjacent. So that means you have to do that secondary analysis. We're going to drop this down and find height. So you want to try to just look at this triangle. And it will always be sine. So sine of 58 equals height over 12.8. So multiply the 12.8 over, it's 12.8 sine of 58. And our height is 10.855. And then you compare your opposite side with that. So opposite is still 11.4. 11.4 is bigger than 10.855. And this means we're going to get two solutions. So we are missing angle B, angle C, and little c. So you need a side across from an angle. It's 11.4 over sine of 58. I'm going to just go ahead and write that twice. Over here, we're going to have 12.8 over sine of B. So again, you want to hit second sine and then cross multiply and divide. All right, so 72.212 degrees, store that as B. To get C, just subtract the other two from 180. Store that as C. And then we're going to do one more ratio. The side will be C over sine of C. You do not need to hit second sine because we're not finding the angle, we're finding the side. It'll just be 11 sine of C divided by sine of 58. Now, when you go to find the others, my suggestion is cover these up with your calculator because you don't need them anymore. And you don't even need to write anything down anymore because the rest of this is going to come from the calculator. The way you get the other triangles, whatever angle's down here, in this case it's B, but it could be called whatever you want, it gets folded along this straight edge, which is worth 180. So if you do 180 minus whatever one is down here, that will give you the new one. So if you do 180 minus alpha B, that's going to give you the new B. So I'm going to store that as new alpha B. And then to get the new C, you're going to do 180 minus the other two. So 180 minus 58 minus alpha B. You should get a teensy, teensy, tiny little angle for this. It should be like a tiny little sliver. Store that as C. And then you're going to do this ratio again, but when you use the new stored C value, it'll give you the new little C. So 11 sine of C divided by sine of 58. And this should be small because it's across from a really small angle. All right, A is going to go in the bottom left, 76 degrees. Across from that is 18. B goes down here, across from that is 20. C we don't know anything about. So again, side-side angle, that's the one that you need to do the analysis for. So theta is acute, opposite is smaller than adjacent. And so that's where we need to drop down the height. So it's going to be sine of 76 equals h over 20. Multiply the 20 over. So 20 sine of 76. Our height is 19.405. And our opposite side 18 is smaller than that. So if the opposite side is not big enough, it's no solution. But that's still worth a lot of points on the test because you have to do all of that analysis. So writing all of this down is important.